A guy named Teru walks through a garden and explains that he recently moved to a school in Okinawa from Tokyo. Afterward, he enters the school and takes a seat in the front row while everyone else is busy talking. Soon, a girl shouts his name from behind with a bright smile, so he turns around to look at her. He recognizes her as Hina, the girl he has a crush on but cannot talk to since she speaks Uchina-guchi, a dialect of Okinawa that is different from standard Japanese. He wishes her good morning, but stumbles over the word good and immediately scolds himself. As she starts to talk to him, he realizes that he can't even understand a word she is saying since the Uchina-guchi dialect dates back to the time when Okinawa was not even part of Japan. As she continues to talk to him, he listens silently and can't help but notice how cute she looks while scratching her face. A girl named Kana stops by and joins them in the conversation, telling Teru that Hina is discussing the roughness of the sudden rainstorm. He thanks her for the help while Hina rushes to hug Kana, which makes him jealous because everyone can understand her except him. He realizes that Kana and Hina are good friends, which reminds him of all the times Kana has helped him understand Uchina-guchi. He then recalls the time when Hina offered him a brown sugar snack, but he didn't understand, so Kana translated what Hina said. Another time before a football game, she wished him good luck and Kana translated again, as she knew that he wouldn't be able to understand Hina. He also recalls all the little phrases that Kana has taught him and gets her a drink to apologize for always making her interpret. As he finds her standing outside the class, he offers the drink and she tells him there was no need for it. She then tries to grab the drink, but her finger rubs against his hand and something sparks in her. Teru explains to her that learning the Okinawan dialect is giving him a hard time, while Kana hides her face behind the drink, thinking that she can't tell him she is teaching him the dialect because it is an excuse for her to talk to him. She then advises him not to force himself to learn the dialect and to let it go with the flow. As the duo continues to talk, Hina suddenly barges out of the class and holds Kana's cheeks, asking why she is blushing so much. As Teru starts to write down what Hina just said, Kana stops him saying that it is nothing important and puts a hand on Hina's mouth, making her shut up. She thanks God for the fact that Teru doesn't understand Uchina-guchi, or it would have been embarrassing for her if he got to know that Kana was blushing because of him. As the time to leave school approaches, Hina and Teru walk back together, and she talks to him about a TV show with a big dog in it. He looks around for some help as he fails to understand her and spots Kana in the crowd. Delighted, he shouts her last name Higa, and suddenly people start to gather around them. It turns out that all these people are named Higa, and it baffles Teru. The two girls save him from the crowd and take him back to school. There they tell him that Higa is a very common name in Okinawa, and if he ever shouts the name again in public, he might attract even more people. Teru recalls the situation and compares it to a zombie apocalypse, thinking that Higa must be like Tanaka, a name very common in Tokyo. But the girls tell him that Tanaka is ultra rare in Okinawa. This shocks him, and he tells them that he would think twice before shouting Kana's last name in public again. Kana thinks that he can call her by her first name Kana and only realizes that she has said it out loud when Teru replies that maybe that is why people in Okinawa avoid such confusion by calling each other by their first names. Hina says that Okinawans have very common surnames, so they call each other by their first names, and since Kana is cute, you should call Kana as Kana. The next day, everyone is enjoying spring, and again, Teru spots Kana in public, with Hina standing right behind him. He decides to shout her name, but stops midway as he's about to say Kana. He thinks that calling a girl by her first name is weird, so he shouts Kana-san, but again attracts a lot of attention. He gets confused and an old woman taps on his shoulder, making him turn around. She tells him that he is very romantic, but he needs to work on his pronunciation, and adds that the right pronunciation is Kana-san, which translates to I love you in the Okinawan dialect. Without realizing, he starts to shout Kana-san, making Kana's heartbeat start to race. Teru asks the old woman why Kana is not replying to him, so the old woman taps on Kana's shoulder and tells her that her boyfriend is calling her. Kana turns red in shyness and loudly tells her that he isn't her boyfriend. She also tells Teru to only call her Kana. Afterward, Teru finds himself in another trouble as he encounters a lost child crying while sitting on a footpath. He tries to calm the child down but fails to do so, and is soon joined by Kana along with Hina, who asks him about the child. They ask if he is lost, and he tells them that he thinks the child was looking for his mother and tripped on the way. Hina sits on her knees and hugs the child, thinking that he might have been surprised due to tripping. Kana sits alongside and offers the child some water, while Hina says Mabia Mabia Urikuyo and pats him on the back while hugging him. Teru asks Kana what Hina is talking about, and she explains to him that in Okinawa, when someone is surprised, their soul or mabui falls from their body and they lose all of their energy. To bring back the energy, a shaman named Yuri emerges and says the magic words Mabia Mabia Urikuyo, and makes the soul fall back into the body, reviving the person's energy. Kana tells Teru that Okinawan grandmas usually say these things to keep the tradition alive, and that her grandma still does it for her. The child throws the cup of water and starts to cry again, saying that he is going to find his mother, but Hina tells the child that there is no hurry to move around. She adds that Okinawa is a small island and her grandmother used to tell her that there is no word for goodbye in the Okinawan dialect. This is because no matter how far someone is from you, if they are in Okinawa, you will end up seeing them again. Kana translates the words of Hina to Teru and it impresses him, but their small talk is soon interrupted by the little child's mother. As the child holds the hand of his mother, he tells Hina that he cannot understand what she said and asks her to repeat it. Kana explains to Teru that the new generation in Okinawa doesn't speak Uchina-gochi, and that is why it is hard for them to understand the language as well. Meanwhile, Hina explains to the child again and adds that old people do not say goodbye to each other, they rather say see you around, or we will see each other in the afterlife. The trio then starts walking and Hina tells them that the child did not want to leave her. As she hums in happiness, Teru walks ahead with his eyes closed. A bull comes in front of him and Hina shouts at Teru to move away. Shocked by the sudden commotion, he moves aside, while the man carrying the bull apologizes and leaves. Teru asks the girls why the bull is walking around freely and Hina tells him that the season of bullfighting is around the corner since the weather is getting warmer. She tells him that the bull is being taken to the beach for the practice of the upcoming match and she reminds him to ensure he doesn't forget to clean up his bull's waste. She then recalls how surprised Teru was after seeing the bull and decides to pat his back like she did to the child. Teru thinks that she will hug him and pat his back slightly, but instead, she makes him turn his back to her and pat his back roughly. Upon seeing his shock, she tells him that the light pats are for the kids and the adults need the pats to be hard to call their energy back. This makes Teru feel more surprised than the bull and his heart skips a beat. In school, a boy inquires from Teru if he ever had sada andagi, and Teru asks what it is. This shocks everyone as sada andagi is a traditional snack and is loved by everyone in Okinawa. It is a doughy snack made of cake flour, baking powder, and eggs, and is then shaped into small balls and fried in oil. He gets excited and says that he would love to try some, making Iso, one of his class fellows, say that he will have his grandma make some for him. Wadie says that her grandma used to work in Nakama Market, so she will ask her grandma to make this snack for him. Another class fellow, Tensuki, jumps in and says that he will make this snack for Teru. Gradually, all the students say that they will bring sada andagi for him, and he is confused as to why everyone is being so nice to him. Seeing his dumbfounded state, Hina explains to him that he's under the famous kami-kami attack of Uchina-gochi. In Okinawa, people love to make outsiders feel welcome and show their love by showering them with food that the outsiders have not tried before. It is like your grandma stuffing you up with your favorite food, and this practice is common because they want outsiders to know that they are loving and welcoming people. Hina asks Kana to make sada andagi since she makes them the best and requests Kana to get some for her as well. The next morning, everyone in the class attacks Teru with sada andagi, and he becomes really happy when he sees that Hina has also brought him some that have been specially made by her grandmother. As the class surrounds him, Kana comes in and looks down thinking about how she will give him the ones she made. She hides the pack behind her and leaves the class confused as everyone starts calling for her. She sits outside the class and scolds herself for being so nervous and not telling him that she has got the snacks made especially for him. As she is about to leave, Teru stops her and asks if she is fine since she looked disturbed in class earlier. She realizes that he is worried about her and has come to ask her about her well-being, making her feel happy. She tells him that she is fine and is about to leave, but Hina joins them and Kana stops. She decides to give him the sada andagi, and Teru tells her that she was late to the kami attack. The three then sit together and enjoy their snacks. However, they are soon interrupted by people from other classes asking if he is Teru, the guy who had not tried sada andagi. People start to flood around him, from other schools as well, and the girls become tense thinking how Teru will react to so many people surrounding him and stuffing his mouth with the snacks. Hina is hiding behind a wall staring at a guy standing at the beach, while Teru stands a few miles away wondering what is Hina looking at. Kana, who is standing behind Teru, asks Teru what he is doing and asks her about Hina. Kana informs him that Hina loves Ojizan, an old man or uncle in Japan, and Teru looks at her in shock thinking, why would Hina love an uncle? However, he calms himself down by thinking that Kana might mean that Hina likes him and does not love him. Suddenly, Hina turns around and asks Kana why she would tell Teru about her likeness to Ojizan. Teru looks at her with eyes wide open while Kana asks her if she is not supposed to tell him since Hina talks about it all day, and it is quite obvious. Hina tells Kana that she feels embarrassed when someone tells her that she talks about it all day. Her words make Teru believe that she loves Ojizan, and he becomes sad thinking that he stands no chance against him. The trio then moves ahead towards the beach and Hina keeps poking Kana for revealing her secret. Kana tells her that she doesn't like Ojizan much and Hina asks her the reason while explaining why she likes them. Teru starts to feel miserable and silently pleads with Hina to stop talking about it as he cannot hear the girl of his dreams talk about a man she loves. As Hina explains the reasons behind her likeness to Ojizin, Teru for the first time feels lucky for not being able to comprehend her dialect. Hina tells Kana that she loves Kisu and Teru thinks she is talking about kissing, which makes him feel even sadder. However, Kana replies to Hina saying that she loves Kisu as well and finds them delicious. This catches Teru's attention as he thinks that delicious is a word that is used for something that one can eat and not for kisses. Hina suddenly shouts and asks them to look at the guy as he puts the fishing net in the sea. As they gather around him, he pulls the net out and collects a lot of fish, making Hina cheer up. The guy asks about Teru and Kana tells him that he is a friend from school, and Teru introduces himself thinking that the guy looks younger than an Ojizin. The guy then tells Teru to get as many fish as he wants and Teru thanks him. However, their talk is soon interrupted by Hina who asks the guy if he has collected any Ojizin. Teru gets shocked thinking why would a guy catch old men from the sea, while the guy tells Hina that it is not the time of the year for Ojizins to appear. Hina claims that she was hiding so her commotion or voice wouldn't disturb Ojizin, and Teru realizes that in the Okinawan dialect, Ojizin is the name for a fish and not for old people. Kana tells Hina that she must be fond of Ojizins and she tells her that she is, but people might call her a glutton if she talks about it a lot. The guy claims that he did catch some Kisu, and Teru realizes that Kisu is also the name of a fish that sits on the ground with his face in his hands. The guy sits in front of him and offers him a kiss as the girls wonder what happened to him. Kana then introduces that the guy is her big brother and the scene then shifts to the next day when Teru's class gathers for a beach party. Teru reaches there before everyone else and walks around complimenting the blue skies, white sandy beach, and the emerald green sea. He wears his shirt and gets excited to learn to swim from his classmates. Hina comes to the beach as well along with a carton of sampan tea and Teru offers her help but gets distracted by how cute Hina looks in her regular clothes. Their attention then shifts to Kana who is being cautioned by her brother to take care of her minerals and stay hydrated. Teru approaches them telling her brother that they will take care of her and he needs not worry. After her brother leaves them, they start to set up their umbrella on the beach, making Teru wonder why everyone else is late. Hina explains to him the concept of Uchina time, which means that Okinawan people usually leave for their social gatherings at the time when they are supposed to meet and arrive late at the venue. Hina begs Teru to hate Uchina time, but not to hate Okinawan people, and even though she sounds desperate, he still finds her cute. Everyone gathers at the beach around 3:30 and announces their arrival to the three of them. The classmates get together and start grilling and eating meat. Once done, Teru shouts in excitement thinking that it is time for a good swim and starts to take off his shirt, but everyone stops him. As everyone laughs, he looks around and sees more than the usual amount of old people on the beach. Unlike the mainland beach parties, which are for a more hip and happening crowd, Okinawan beach parties are for everyone to enjoy. They have more formal parties at the beach to welcome new employees or get together as a class. However, Teru is unaware of these facts and still thinks that swimming is a part of the party, but is only stopped because of the old people around them. They continue the day by playing cards, taking breaks here and there, and then calling it a day. Teru asks them if they are not going to swim, adding that coming to the beach and not swimming seems like a waste of their trip. Everyone laughs and Hina explains to him that the sea is to be looked at and not to swim. She further says something in Buchinagochi, but Teru fails to understand. So Kana comes forward and tells him that people do not like to swim there as they feel mucha after swimming. He asks what mucha means and everyone gets shocked upon realizing that mucha is not a common word in standard Japanese. One of the classmates hiding his disappointment tells him that it means sticky, while another changes the topic and begins to talk about fish. Afterward, everyone decides to leave and continues to walk in silence while Teru asks them the reason behind their silence. The next day at school, Kana leaves early and Teru has to return home alone with Hina. He wonders if he will be able to understand her, but stays positive and decides to ask her out since the weather seems nice. He calls her and just when he is about to ask her, the weather changes and it suddenly starts to rain. He exclaims that the weather forecast said it won't be raining today, but Hina tells him that the Okinawan weather forecast is completely useless. He stops Hina from saying anything bad about the forecasters, but he is unaware that in Okinawa sudden rainstorms are quite common, and they often leave as soon as they come at times. Teru thinks that Hina does not have an umbrella while he has one, which means they will have to share one. He relates it to a romantic scene in mangas thinking that once both of them are under the umbrella, Hina will notice Teru's one shoulder getting wet from rain and will know that he cares for her. In his train of thought, he tells himself that he is not getting his hopes, but upon coming back to reality, he realizes that Hina has started walking and is soaking in rain. He yells at her to stop since he has got an umbrella, but looks around to find out that no one is carrying an umbrella. In Okinawa, people do not carry umbrellas because they don't care about getting wet. The rains are quite common and the winds are too harsh for them to handle umbrellas. As the duo starts to walk, Teru offers an umbrella to Hina, but the rain suddenly stops. The The weather keeps switching and a rainbow appears in the sky, since rainbows are quite common in Okinawa as compared to the mainland due to the rain falling alongside the sun. They get happy after seeing the rainbow, but Teru notices that Hina's clothes are getting messy and offers her his umbrella. She denies it at first, but then looks at herself and hugs herself since the white uniform shirt has become transparent. He tells her to take the umbrella, but she says something in Ukinabuchi and runs away. Later, he searches up what she said and finds out that she told him he did not have to tell her that her clothes were messy as it made her feel embarrassed. He stops by the sea and finds Kana sitting there on a bench. Upon going near, he asks what she is doing there and she points at Hina and Kana's siblings playing together. He looks at them and tells Kana that stopping by the sea while going home after school feels good. He then reminds her that the bench she is sitting on is the bench they met at in spring break for the first time. Upon hearing this, Hina pops out of nowhere and looks at them in shock as she thought they met them at the school for the first time. Teru looks at her and realizes that she is all wet and her clothes are all messy. He asks her if she tripped in the sea and the scene then shifts to the past. It was a hot day in Okinawa and on the other hand it was snowing in Tokyo. Teru had just landed from Tokyo and was sitting on a bench with his luggage put right beside him. He was watching the weather forecast on his phone feeling sad as he felt extremely hot in Okinawa and held a copy of Shonen Jump in his other hand. A pair of kids interrupted asking how he had this week's copy of Shonen Jump since it was to be released on Tuesday in Okinawa and it was only Monday. They asked him if he was from the future and he looked at them in shock. However, Kana stopped the kids before they could make any more assumptions and told them that Shonen Jump was released on Monday in the mainland and since he has come from the mainland, he has a copy of it. This was because Shonen Jump was shipped from mainland to Okinawa and it took a day to reach there. Furthermore, delays occurred because of Okinawa's infamous sudden weather shifts. The kids named Suzu and Naoya started crying saying that it was unfair. Upon seeing them cry, he offered them his copy since he was already done reading it. The kids sat by the ocean to read it while Kana and Teru talked to each other. He told her that he just landed and come to see the ocean since he had never seen it before and was thinking of going for a swim. However, a strong wind blew and Kana's cap flew towards the ocean. Kana ran after it, but Teru was faster and jumped into the ocean to catch it. At first, he managed to catch the cap without tripping, but as soon as he showed it to them, his feet tripped and he fell into the ocean, making himself and the cap wet. As he came out of the ocean, kids told him that Kana couldn't swim, making Kana feel embarrassed, and she tried to stop them. But before she could say anything, Teru told them that he couldn't swim either and just went there to get the cap, even though it scared him a lot. This impresses Kana, but her train of thought is soon broken down as the kids laugh at the way Teru's legs shake in fear. The scene then shifts back to the present where Hina falls to the ground and cries at the fact that people on the mainland get to read Shonen Jump before the people of Okinawa. Teru is clicking pictures of a shizu with Hina and Kana standing behind him. Hina shouts at him, asking why he is clicking so many pictures, and he sheepishly tells her that they are a rare sight for him. He then turns around to thank an old man who let him click the pictures. Upon seeing the old man, Kana wonders how he let Teru take pictures of Shisa and is impressed by Teru's kindness. Later, Hina looks through Teru's photo album on his phone and finds many Shisas photographed in it. He shows them a picture of a train in Tokyo saying that this is where he lives and Hina peeks in from the side. Upon seeing the picture, the girls are shocked to find trains and road crossings since it is something they have only seen in movies. Teru then tells them that Shizas have very cute faces and the girls look at him weirdly since in Okinawa people do not think about whether Shizas are cute or not. However, in Okinawan dialect, people who are unattractive are called Shisa face. He looks at them, asking if they do not find Shizas attractive, and Hina asks him if he knows why Shizas are kept outside the houses. He says that it is for decoration, but Hina informs him that the right one, who is a male Shiha, has an open mouth so that it doesn't let Majimon or bad spirits enter inside the home, while Kana tells him that the left Shiza, which is a female, keeps its mouth tightly closed to keep the blessings from running out of the house. As they start to move, Hina tells him that a long time ago, Shizas would be made from the material that was left over while making roofers of the house. She adds that no one knew what a Shiza would look like until a house was built, which is why some Shizas are attractive while others look weird or even scary. This newly found information excites Teru and he clicks even more pictures of Shizas around him while saying that even Shizas have their history. Upon seeing him happy, Hina says that she feels really happy about Teru building up a liking for Okinawa. However, she tells him that he needs to have more information on the history of Shisa and starts her unstoppable chatter. Kana translates her words to Teru and tells him that a long time ago people only had one Shisa outside their house. The next day at school the bell rings, indicating that it is time for a lunch break, and all the students wonder what they'll have for lunch. Hina, who is sitting beside Teru, stretches their bodies and two class fellows come near Teru to ask if he would like to go to the school store. In the meantime, girls named Izumi and Yetoe come live through the school's broadcast club and announce that they are going to play some songs. They then announce the name of the first song, Tushin Doi, and everyone stops in their places. As soon as the song starts to play, everyone begins to dance, making Teru wonder what suddenly happened to them. So much has already occurred to him in Okinawa that he remains unfazed by the sudden dance and tries to figure out the reason behind the dance. He concludes that it is because of the folk song, but forgets the name of the song only for Kana to remind him that it is Tushin Doi, and people are performing kachashi, which is also a type of dance. He looks at Kana and asks why she is not stopping her dance, and she tells him that Okinawans cannot stop themselves from performing kachashi when Tushin Doi is played. This is their folk dance, and although it is not taught in schools, Okinawans can still dance to it at occasions like weddings, family gatherings, and even elections. He wonders how they can do it without being taught, and the kids at school tell him that they just know it, maybe because of genetics. However, Teru gets a flashback of his grandpa teaching him the dance at a family gathering while he was in preschool. One classmate says that she learned it from an old lady in China Shoten. Another says that he learned it from an old man at a festival, while Hina adds that one might not remember where they learned it from, but one does remember how it is performed. She adds that the dance is quite common in Okinawans. One might learn it from their grandparents, and their grandparents might have learned it from theirs. Furthermore, she says that one day it is you who becomes a teacher. If you ever have a child with a girl from Okinawa, then you will have to teach kachashi to those kids. Teru suddenly imagines Hina holding their child and his head starts to spin. On the other hand, a thought pops into Hina's mind about Teru's grandchild asking him to teach him kachashi and Teru telling him that he does not know how to perform it. She shouts at Teru that her grandchildren are in danger and begins to teach him the dance. As Teru struggles with letting his body loose, Hina tells him that Kana is good at it and shouts at Kana to teach him. Kana denies the request, making Teru think that he is a gone case, while she turns around and starts imagining a future family with Teru. The kachashi is all about sharing happiness and joy, and the class seems to be achieving their goal in the best way possible. After school, the class plans to go out. Everyone hides behind a wall, while Hina covers her head and looks out to check if anyone has seen them, but only sees the school sweeper brushing the floors. She tells everyone that they will be using the back gate, and Teru asks her why they need to hide. She replies to him that the parlor they are planning to go to is very naughty, and they will have to be discreet about it. Upon reaching there, he realizes that the parlor is not what he imagined it to be. He asks his classmates what this place is about, and they tell him that it sells food. Teru looks at them with his eyes wide open and asks what is naughty about selling food. As an answer to his question, Hina says that they do not want their teachers to know that they are having snacks after school. A parlor in Okinawa is basically a food place that sells all the traditional food like sada andagi, taco rice, zenzai, and sokisaba. Most of their classmates order taco rice, some order sokisaba, and Teru wonders what he will order. He thinks about copying others since he is not familiar with the menu, but gets shocked when he hears Hina order zenzai in the hot weather. However, when their menu arrives, Teru realizes that zenzai has shaved ice in it and asks why their zenzai looks like this and not like a soup. They tell him that zenzai in Okinawa is shaved ice, and its hot form is called hot zenzai there. Upon taking the first bite of her zenzai, Hina moves to heaven and cannot help but talk non-stop about it. As she starts to speak in Okinawan dialect, Teru's classmate starts to translate for him. Hina says that it is yummy, and as Kana is about to translate, the classmate beats her to eat, and she looks down sadly. Again, Hina says that Teru should try more traditional food, but before Kana can translate, the classmate does. This commotion does not go unnoticed by Kana's friend, who is sitting right beside her. 3 out of 6 classmates decide to go and get something to drink, leaving behind Kana, Hina, and Teru. However, the one who noticed Kana's sad face earlier comes back saying that she left her wallet behind. Upon coming back, she notices that Kana is translating what Hina is saying to Teru and is finding ways to get closer. This makes her gasp, and she sits beside Kana while Hina starts to speak. The girl reminds Kana that she needs to translate for Teru, and as Kana does, Kana realizes that her friend has guessed her feelings for Teru. Their classmates return with the drinks and ask what they all were talking about, to which the girl replies that they were talking about something sweet, making Kana put her face in her hands in shyness. Hina adds that they were talking about zenzai and says that it is very good in summer, but her classmates, saying that she likes it all year round. A few days later, a festival named Uruma City Aiza Festival begins in Okinawa. All the classmates dance at the festival, play drums, and even sing songs. This festival is a summer tradition, and during this festival, Iza is performed, which is a traditional Okinawan dance, and drums are played all around the town. Teru looks at the festivities and gets excited about the festival, while Kana's friend teases her upon seeing Teru. Teru feels grateful for being there and thinks about the time when he was invited by a classmate who told her that Gashikawa Youth Association would be performing Iza. At that time, he mistook Iza for Acer and asked if it was something including monitors. He says that although he had no idea what the event was about at that time, he still accepted the invitations and came. He then looks around himself and realizes that there are a lot of couples around him. He hopes that he will come with Hina someday and imagines her wearing traditional Japanese attire and walking through the festival with him. However, his chain of thoughts is broken by the sudden realization that he never got the courage to tell Hina that he likes her. He stops himself from getting deeper and tries to focus on the festival ahead of him. He finds Kana dancing, but what shakes him is Hina dressed differently from everybody with white paint and magic marker all around her face. He wonders why she is dressed up like that as she goes to meet the audience. Teru concludes that Hina is not good at dance, so she has decided to do something other than dancing. But Suzu, along with Naoya, tells him that it is not so and asks him to focus on Hina. They see that she is dancing in front of a crowd and is making them excited. Teru says that Hina's job is to make the festival more fun, but Suze tells him that is not all and says she is playing the role of Chandara. Chandara is the busiest among all the performers as she has to keep the lines tidy, help the performers stay hydrated, wipe down the performers, start the song and maintain the rhythm of the drums, help the performers by picking up their fallen drumsticks, and lastly engage the audience. As the trio of novices are moving around, Suzu says that Hina is the floor master of the festival and adds that one cannot be floor master until they are good at seeing things. This reminds Teru of his first day at school and he was all alone and Hina approached him and welcomed him to the class. He thinks of all the times she has made him feel welcome and thinks that he never really thanked her. As the Gashikoa Youth Association's performance ends, the crowd cheers for them and the hosts announce another performance. Teru searches for Hina and finds her sitting away from the crowd and calls for her. She looks at him and asks how did she perform, to which he replies that she was great. He thanks her for her help from the first day of school and wonders if that was all he wanted to say. He stops her from leaving but thinks if he should tell her about what he feels or let things go the way they are going. Afterward, Teru tries to gather some nerves and is about to tell Hina that he has feelings for her. The festival buzzes with energy as lights and music fill the air, but Teru struggles to focus. His problem isn't nerves around Hina, it's her makeup. The girl wears thick black and white makeup traditional to their island, but the unfamiliar sight makes Teru choke with laughter. She proudly tells him about festival goers asking to take pictures with her. Teru wants to be honest but decides against it, choosing instead to hide his amusement while she beams with pride. Hina drags Teru toward the stage. She insists they won't miss one of her favorite parts of the event, the grand finale. The festival host takes the microphone and invites everyone to join the kachashi, a traditional Okinawan dance. Teru stays at the back, watching as the crowd flocks near the stage and starts dancing. The energy amazes him, and he can't help but admire how everyone knows the steps by heart. Kana, who also happens to be nearby, notices him lingering and approaches. She sees his hesitation and desire to join the others, so she asks him if he plans to dance, but he admits he's not much of a dancer. Despite his reluctance, he shares his admiration for the island, saying how much he appreciates Okinawa's dedication to its traditions. The past 4 months were an eye-opener for him. Kana stands beside him, her eyes fixed on the lively crowd as she mentions how much there is to do since celebrations are almost weekly during this time of the year. Teru watches her and realizes how deeply she loves her home since she knows so much about her island. Kana gathers her courage and asks how he's adjusting to life in Okinawa. Teru responds with enthusiasm, saying he's come to enjoy the island more, thanks to her help, citing that he enjoys learning new things from her every day since he arrived. She blushes at his words but quickly masks her feelings by adding that she enjoys talking to him too, explaining how much she has learned about the mainland through their conversations. He appreciates her compliment, feeling glad he has been able to help her in some way since he feels like always troubles her since he always turns to her for translations. Kana then admits she enjoys translating the dialect for him, but Teru assumes it's simply her enthusiasm for sharing Okinawan dialect and culture. Kana hesitates before confessing that she translates not because it's her duty, but because it gives her an excuse to talk to him. Teru, oblivious to her feelings, misinterprets her words again, thinking she simply wants him to better understand the island, admitting he is ignorant to almost everything in Okinawa. He tells Kana she's amazing, but she misreads his kind words as a declaration of shared feelings. Her heart races as she lowers her gaze, overwhelmed with emotion. She apologizes for troubling him with her confession, but Teru assures her that she hasn't. He tells her he feels the same way, not realizing she has taken his words romantically. Kana's heartbeat pounds in her chest, not believing that her crush feels the same way. Suddenly, she feels pressure and wonders what direction their relationship will take. Suddenly, Teru announces that he wants to get more hands-on with Okinawan culture. Kana, flustered by his wording, misinterprets his intentions and panics, thinking he's implying something inappropriate. As Teru enthusiastically explains that he's excited to try something he's never done before, Kana takes a step back. She nervously tells him she has no experience in the matter and insists it's too soon. Teru, oblivious to her misunderstanding, flashes her a boyish smile. He thinks she's joking, especially since she knows so much about Okinawan culture. Realization suddenly dawns on Kana. She pieces together their conversation and recognizes that they've been talking about completely different things. While she feels slightly relieved, a tinge of disappointment lingers. Her earlier confession clearly didn't reach Teru the way she had hoped. Teru then takes a step closer to the stage, determined and eager. He declares that he wants to give his best effort and experience everything firsthand. Turning back to Kana, he nervously asks her to teach him how to dance the kachashi. As the two join the lively crowd near the stage, people start to notice them. The festival goers look on with fondness, sensing that their relationship is steadily growing stronger. Despite Teru's awkward, uncoordinated movements and Kana's energetic and precise steps, the pair fits perfectly into the vibrant rhythm of the festival. The next morning greets Okinawa with a bright sun and sea breeze. Hina proudly shows off her whistling skills to Teru, who has been attempting to learn since hearing her during Yaisa. Hina confidently promises to teach him at the beach, speaking in her dialect and leaving Teru confused as he still struggles to grasp the language. Kana translates for him, and he eagerly accepts the promise of lessons. Even Suzu and Naoya tag along, finally hoping to learn the Okinawa whistle. The group heads to the beach, where Hina explains that the open air means no one will mind them being loud. She fondly recounts how she and Kana learned to whistle from someone at the very same beach. Inspired by the story and the sea breeze, Teru feels confident he can whistle too. However, his attempts only produce awkward blowing sounds. Hina tries to teach him with exaggerated gestures and instructions in her dialect, but her efforts only confuse him further. Even Suzu and Naoya chime in, complaining that she's a terrible teacher, making Teru feel slightly relieved that the problem wasn't the dialect. Hina is just bad at this. Realizing the truth, Hina dramatically shouts at the sea in despair. Ye, noticing the struggle, suggests that Kana take over the lesson, and suddenly Hina recovers from her disheartened state to vouch that Kana has a good whistle and is the better teacher among the two of them. Kana hesitates, clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but her sister Suzu begins to throw a tantrum and threatens to reveal her secrets unless she agrees to teach them. Backed into a corner, Kana reluctantly agrees to teach the group. Kana begins her lesson on whistling by instructing everyone that using 2 index fingers is easier than the common single finger method, and she recommends it when starting out. She explains that the position of the tongue is the most critical part of producing the sound, and to demonstrate, she opens her mouth to show them the proper placement. As she does, the kids and Teru position themselves directly in front of her and peer straight into her mouth. She notices Teru staring intently at her tongue, causing her to break into a nervous sweat and awkwardly close her tongue in the realization that she is doing something that can be counted as embarrassing in front of the person you love. Ye, standing at the back, tries hard to hide her laughter. Kana looks over and realizes this was a setup all along, a playful trap orchestrated by Ye to put her into an awkward situation with her crush. The children demanded that she demonstrate the tongue position again since Kana had shut her mouth too soon when she got embarrassed. Trapped by the persistence of the group, she reluctantly continues the lesson, struggling to keep her composure as her nerves threaten to overwhelm her. After several attempts and much trial and error, the children and Teru finally manage to produce faint whistling sounds. While their whistles aren't as sharp or clear as Hina's, Teru is thrilled to have succeeded. He beams with pride at his small victory, while Kana, utterly worn out from teaching and her embarrassment, exhales deeply in relief and congratulates him. As the commotion settles, Kana takes a moment to watch the group fondly. Hina, Suzu, Naoya, and Teru whistle enthusiastically among themselves, happy that they can create the piercing noise as a group. They call Kana over, urging her to join them, and she eventually gives in and leaves her seat next to Ye, join the group and whistle together. 8 years earlier, a younger Hina and Kana had walked along the very same beach when a sharp, piercing whistle caught their attention. They spot a man known in the area for his exceptional whistling skills, practicing near the bay, surrounded by children. Kana stared at the man in awe, silently wishing she could make such a beautiful sound herself. Noticing Kana's dilemma and shyness, Hina grabbed her hand and suggested they ask the man to teach them. Despite Kana's hesitation, Hina pulled her along and together they approached the man. He kindly shared his techniques, inspiring the two girls to practice tirelessly every day. A week passed, but Hina and Kana could only manage airy, hollow noises. Their struggles didn't go unnoticed. 2 boys from the island teased them, mocking their inability to whistle even after receiving instructions. The ridicule struck a nerve in Kana, silencing her and breaking her spirit. The boy who threw the insult sensed that he managed to get through Kana and invited them to go bug catching. However, Hina refused to let the insult go and argued with the boys, demanding they take back their words. Kana, however, stopped her, saying she didn't want to practice anymore. Sensing how deeply the teasing had affected Kana, Hina shifted gears and made a heartfelt promise. She vowed to practice with Kana until they could whistle together, even if it took until they were old grandmothers. As the boys left, Kana broke down, tears streaming as she confessed how much she wanted to whistle with Hina. Moved by her words, Hina hugged Kana tightly and reassured her that they would learn how to whistle together. After the teasing incident, Kana and Hina went back to the man on the beach, eager to perfect their whistling skills. They asked him for more tricks and tips, determined to improve. From that day forward, they practiced every chance they got, no matter where they were. Sometimes the frustration was too much for Kana, and she would cry, overwhelmed by how little progress they seemed to make. But Hina was always there to remind her that they would reach their goal together. No matter how long it took, Hina promised she would stay by her side. Then one day, it finally happened. The girls, practicing side by side, both produced a clear, sharp whistle at the same time. The sound rang and both girls paused, stunned by what they had just done. Smiles spread across their faces as the realization set in. They had finally done it. They had learned how to whistle. In celebration, they jumped up and down, holding hands, laughing, and cheering together for finally achieving what they had worked so hard for. Energized by their success, they decided to show the boys who had teased them. They called them out, eager to prove they had mastered the whistle. When the boys arrived at the beach, they were stunned. They never expected the girls to actually succeed. Haru, the boy who had teased them the most, opened his mouth to throw another insult, but words failed him. His skeptical friend, tired of Haru's arrogance, stepped in and told the girls that Haru couldn't even whistle himself. He had no right to insult them. Haru, now embarrassed, began to apologize, but Hina, with a playful smile, took control of the situation. She offered to teach the boys how to whistle, proudly declaring that Kana was the better teacher. If they wanted to learn, they should start with her. In the present, Kana sat down, worn out but feeling nostalgic. She smiled to herself, remembering the promise she made with Hina all those years ago, that they would practice together, even if they grew old and gray. Hina, noticing the smile, sat beside her and curiously asked what was on Kana's mind. When Kana admitted she was thinking about that memory from when they learned to whistle, Hina couldn't help but tease her, recalling how cute she had looked when she cried. The two bickered lightly, their fondness for each other evident in their playful exchange. Nearby, their family and friends watched with warm smiles, enjoying the bond between them. 4 months into his life in Okinawa, Teru is settling in well, but the Okinawan dialect still trips him up. One of his more embarrassing mix-ups happens on the last day of the first semester. A classmate casually announces he's heading to the bathroom, and Teru, thinking he's being invited along, follows him without hesitation. Apparently, this kind of misunderstanding is common for newcomers. In Okinawa, when someone says, "Let's do something," they actually mean, "I'll be doing something." As the school day winds down, excitement fills the air. Students can't wait to enjoy their free time, but first they need to tidy up their classrooms. While dusting the chalkboard, Teru accidentally inhales some chalk dust and sneezes. Without thinking, Kana fondly blurts out, "Kusukiya." The moment the words leave her mouth, she freezes, her face turning bright red as she turns around, hoping to mask her embarrassment. Teru finds the phrase oddly cute and asks what it means. Before Kana can respond, Ye bluntly tells him that it's just a swear word. While it is technically a curse, the real meaning is much deeper. Okinawans say it to scare off evil spirits that might try to steal someone's soul after they sneeze. Kana, realizing the misunderstanding, rushes to explain, hoping Teru doesn't take it the wrong way or think badly of her. As the sun begins to set, the group leaves school and chats about urban legends and ghost stories. Hina insists that some scary stories have real-life origins and warns Teru that the Majiman, Okinawan spirits, could actually exist while trying to make herself look like a ghost through her movements. Teru finds this side of Hina adorable, even though she's trying to scare him. Switching tactics, Hina points out that Okinawans take spirits very seriously. The town is full of protective statues and structures designed to keep Majiman at bay. As she lists off various Majiman busters, Teru starts noticing strange signs plastered on walls all over town. To his amazement, he learns that these two serve as spirit deterrents, specifically to stop Majiman from rushing around. He holds back from calling Okinawans superstitious, but Kana and Hana see right through him. Hina, determined to prove a point, shares a family story. One of the old uncles in the town never believed in the supernatural until his grandson was born. Suddenly, he started following every tradition, placing protective charms around his house to keep spirits away from his family. She believes it's because he suddenly wishes the new member of the family to stay safe. With a knowing smile, Hina claims she also has someone she wishes to keep safe, so she plucks a blade of grass, twists it into a simple charm, and hands it to Teru, claiming it will protect him from the Majiman. Hina's gift turns out to be a san, a charm made from susupi grass. In Okinawan tradition, grandmothers often give these to their grandchildren to ward off spirits and bring protection. Hina, Kana, and Teru eventually part ways, and Kana stares longingly at Teru. As summer break stretches on, Kana finds herself restless. Without school, she has fewer chances to see Teru and the days feel long and uneventful. She considers inviting him out by sending him a message, but the mere thought of asking him on a date flusters her. Deciding it's best to not think of Teru and enjoy her summer, she resolves to go on a shopping trip alone to keep her mind off things. While waiting at the bus stop, Kana hears someone call out her name. She turns to see Teru looking genuinely happy to run into a familiar face. Her heart skips a beat. After an entire week without seeing him, she suddenly finds herself at a loss for words. Just then, the bus arrives right on time, and Kana visibly reacts with surprise, confusing Teru. In places like Tokyo, punctual buses are normal, but in Okinawa, they normally tend to be an hour late. She suddenly feels down, cursing her luck for the bus being on time, when she finally has the chance to chat with Teru. Noticing her disappointment, Teru asks what's wrong, and Kana absent-mindedly answers in her usual dialect, mentioning she's going shopping. She forgets that Teru often misinterprets Okinawan phrasing, so when she hears his excited voice beside her, she is confused and shocked to find him sitting right next to her, even offering her snacks for the trip. Her initial panic fades when she recognizes the warm feeling bubbling in her chest. The thought of spending the afternoon with Teru makes her heart race. Upon arriving at the mall, Kana momentarily loses sight of him due to her being absent-minded. When she finally spots him again, he's already wearing a newly purchased shirt, which he believes is a Hawaiian shirt. But Kana corrects him, telling him that it's actually karaoke wear, a formal shirt worn by office workers in Okinawa. To him, it looks no different from a Hawaiian shirt, so he wonders what the difference is. Kana explains that the difference lies in the patterns. The ones with designs only on one side are more formal, while the ones with designs all over are less formal, so people tend to mistake the latter one as Hawaiian-made. Curious, Teru grabs more shirts, holding them up one by one. Each time, Kana confidently declares them to be karaoke wear, feeling proud of her knowledge, until a shopkeeper overhears and apologizes because the last shirt in Teru's hands is, in fact, an actual Hawaiian shirt that accidentally got mixed into their display. Kana's face turns into disbelief as she got it wrong, then slumps in embarrassment. It turns out the only clear difference between a Hawaiian shirt and karaoke wear is that the latter is made in Okinawa. The storekeeper assumes Teru and Kana are a couple and suggests they buy a matching pair of the shirt Teru purchased. While Teru immediately tries to clarify that they are just friends, Kana finds herself giddy at the thought of people seeing them as a couple. The idea flusters her so much that she panics, her face turning red. As he turns to Kana, she tries to excuse herself but slips into her dialect again, unintentionally prompting Teru to follow her. When she notices Teru has been following her, she realizes that he has once again misunderstood her. She finally figures out that Teru must have fallen victim to the let's do something problem. They take a break at a cafe, and Kana finally explains the misunderstanding that has caused Teru's repeated mistakes. Okinawans often say, let's go, when they mean they will be doing something alone. Since no one had ever pointed out the language difference to him before, he had unknowingly followed people around several times. Teru understands his mistake, finally realizing why his friend was upset at him when he followed his friend to the bathroom. Kana feels bad for not realizing it earlier and taking advantage of his ignorance to spend the day with him. But Teru says that he is actually happy about the mix-up since it gave him a chance to hang out with her. The confession leaves Kana flustered, her face warming up as Teru realizes he may have sounded a bit selfish. They both begin to panic as Teru tries to explain his words. Hoping to shift the mood, Kana suggests they explore the mall a little longer, pointing out a music event in one part of the mall. They browse more stores, look for more clothes to buy, and even stop by the arcade. Kana watches as Teru eagerly attempts the crane game, and they even try their hands at the taiko drum game. The day turns out more exciting than Kana had expected, and before they know it, the sun begins to set. On the bus ride home, both feel satisfied with their shopping, each holding a bag filled with items. Teru, especially, is excited about the discount coupon he managed to snag from a store, looking forward to another shopping trip. As the ride continues, Kana hesitates before shyly suggesting they go to the mall together again sometime. However, Teru speaks at the same time, saying the exact same thing. They laugh at the awkward timing but quickly look away, unsure if the other really meant it or if it was just another language mix-up. Summer continues to bring unexpected moments. Teru joins a calisthenics event at City Hall, only to find himself surrounded by eager children who are interested in having someone from the mainland join them. The group excitedly tugs at his shirt, showing off what they know, and asking him things that they believe people from outside Okinawa get to experience. He notices that many of them begin their sentences with a distinct sound, which he finds oddly charming. Hime explains that children in their town use the sound to indicate they are listening, confirming, or thinking, and even admits that it's a habit she finds extremely adorable as well. As he watches the kids chatter, he realizes Suzu has the same habit. He had never paid much attention to it before, but now it stands out. Out of nowhere, Hina's grandmother arrives and Hina rushes over, hugging her tightly. As she enthusiastically introduces her grandmother, Teru notices that Hina has unconsciously started making the same sounds as the children. It dawns on him that she must have had the habit as a child and wasn't even aware she had slipped back into it. Teru bows respectfully, introducing himself to Sachiko, Hina's grandmother. As he raises his head, Sachiko immediately begins to speak in rapid Ochinaguchi dialect. Teru, however, doesn't catch a single thing. With the group gathered, they prepared for the morning calisthenics. A radio is switched on, broadcasting the routine's instructions. While the children follow along effortlessly, Teru finds himself struggling. To his horror, the instructions are in Uchinagochi, making it difficult for him to understand. At the end of the session, Hina begins stamping the kids' attendance cards as they eagerly line up. Teru lingers at the back. He remembers collecting stamps as a child for small prizes, usually candy, but now as a high schooler, it feels a little embarrassing since he finds himself too old. He debates whether or not to get his cards stamped when he overhears a boy excitedly telling another that collecting 7 stamps earns them a special treat, Keitan-san's famous Sada Andeji. Teru makes up his mind and vows to collect every stamp, assuming the treat is actually made by his crush, Hina. Determined, he commits to attending every session, enduring the sweltering heat, the occasional rain, and even mornings when he barely gets any sleep. The promise of freshly made Sada Andeji keeps him motivated. On the 7th day, the children, including Teru, excitedly gather, eager to receive their reward. As the final exercise ends, they submit their completed cards, eyes sparkling with anticipation. Hina reveals a large platter of golden Sada Andeji, the sight alone making their mouths water. To Teru's surprise, Hina hands him the biggest one as a thank you for helping out during the sessions. Before he can protest, she grins mischievously and moves to feed him. Ignoring his protests, she shoves the pastry into his mouth, leaving him no choice but to accept it. Hina proudly declares that her grandmother's Sada Andeji is the best in the world. At the mention of Kian-san, Teru realizes that the kids have been referring to Hina's grandmother, whose last name is Kian, just like Hina's. A wave of realization washes over him. He had endured an entire week of morning calisthenics, thinking he was working toward tasting something Hina had made. Now, he understands that she had no part in making the pastries at all. As he continues chewing, he can't help but laugh at his own predicament, torn between disappointment and amusement.